Show. My name is Kaustubh Srivastava, and today, after a very long wait, I get this opportunity to interview a very special guest. Our guest today is Mr. Tariq Khan. Sir is a principal associate with Advani Co, and sir is also the author of a very celebrated book, On the Rise. Today in this episode, sir will talk about his journey through law school, his experiences with law. He will also talk about the arbitration under MSMEs. But more about that in the conversation. If you like this episode, make sure you like, share and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feedbacks, make sure you reach out to me. I would absolutely love that. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's jump right into the conversation with Mr. Tariq Khan right here on the One Take Show. Hello sir, welcome to the One Take Show. I am so happy and so glad to have this opportunity to talk to you. I still remember that it was my first year in our university. And we were trying to find all the kind of guidance and the inspiration that every law student looks for. And we keep on looking. And then from my first year to my third year, there has been one name that we have heard in the circuit, and the one name that we all look up to, especially in dispute resolution, that we want to reach out to. And I did the same. I texted you on LinkedIn for an opportunity. It was you, sir. And you have always inspired us through your posts, through your articles, through your book, and through the various achievements that you've received. I'm really grateful that I have this opportunity to talk to you today. I'm really optimistic that we're going to have a very fruitful session that is going to add a lot of value, not just to my podcast, but to all the listeners who will be listening to this session. So thank you so much for taking time out for today, sir.
Thank you, Kaustubh. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Right, sir. So before we talk about the substantial part of our conversation that we have decided today, which is a very interesting conversation, and will definitely open up a lot of perspectives for all our listeners, I would first like to know about your very interesting journey. We've all read your interviews, but I would like you to tell it to our listeners, because I think I will not be able to do justice to it. Your story is extremely inspiring. How has your journey been through law school? Any standout experiences? Everything, sir.
Well, my law school journey was pretty interesting, and I've never ever in a video interview discussed my law school journey. I've only given interviews, rightly said by you. So I'll briefly take you through my law school. I'll just not take much time. So when I never wanted to be a lawyer. I had various issues. I was not comfortable with. I had poor communication skills. I was not very comfortable with English language, and I had stage fright, and I was not fond of reading at all. These were the reasons essentially why I did not want to pursue law as a career. However, since I could not clear the engineering exams, I had to consider law as an option. And I remember the first day of the orientation, when I was sitting in the class of 70 individuals in Jamia Millia Islamia, there was a lecturer who was teaching us contract law. And I did not know anything about the subject because nobody in my family is from law background. So I saw this gentleman teaching from a very thick book that was R.K. Bankia, Law of Contract. And I was under an impression that this book is going to go on for 5 years. And then there was another book, Law of Torts. I thought that these 2-3 subjects, contract, torts, this is all about law. And for 5 years, they'll be teaching us these books because they are too thick. But I didn't realize that these were the books which were only there for the semester or for the first year. And I was extremely surprised. Plus, I used to be a backbencher. I never had the courage to stand up in the class and speak up because, like I told you, I had some issues with the communication, and I was extremely underconfident. So I was never an active student in the class in the first semester. I remember in the first year, my grades were really bad. Out of 9 SGPA, semi-grade point average, I scored around 5.83 in the first year, which was a very bad score. But one good thing we did was that I decided to take part in mooting because there was not much mooting culture in our college at that point of time. And we participated, and it came as a surprise because a lot of people discouraged us. They told us, you're a first year student and you would not know anything about law. How are you planning to do a moot court? You'll be embarrassed. And the day when we tried to back out quite a lot of times, but our seniors kept insisting, no, you can't back out now. The organizers, because they wanted more teams and they wanted us to be there. So eventually we participated, and surprisingly we won that moot court. It was an intra-moot. And that is when we realized that once you try doing something, I mean, that was the day, I think, when I lost, my underconfidence, and I started believing in myself again. And I thought that it doesn't matter if you speak very fluently in English or not, as long as you know the law. That's all that matters. So going forward, I realized that apart from these things, I need to work on my CV. And I was under an impression that, look, whether you have contacts or not, it doesn't matter. Whether you're a first generation lawyer or you know somebody. So it's not just who you know, it's what you know that gets you ahead in the profession. And with that mindset, I started applying in the law firms, and many law firms kept rejecting, of course. The standard response, which I'm sure even you all must have received, is that currently we do not have availability, your slots are not available. We'll keep your CV in our database and we'll get back to you in case of a suitable opportunity. So I am now, I'm very well acquainted with this language because I received like 1,000 such emails, and many times law firms did not even respond. So the reason might have been that if you're not from a top tier law college, then you don't perhaps get those internships and all that you want. And I think it's justified also. It's fine. I mean, if they think that the top law colleges would have better products, though I strongly disagree. I feel that it doesn't matter which college you're from. It completely depends on an individual, how an individual wants to work and whether he or she is able to prove his or her mettle. And as long as you're willing to give your blood, sweat and tears to the profession, to the subject, then I don't think there's anything stopping you. So I did my interviews, my internships. I became active in the college. I became the president of Debating Society, organized various events, did a lot of moots, participated in Oxford Prize Media, which was, I think, one of the most prestigious moot court. And I think we were the 12th best team, and I was the 7th best speaker. So, it was a very interesting journey. So I did quite a lot of moot courts, and I think co-curricular activities are very important for law students. So in a nutshell, I think that idea should be CV building, and it doesn't matter, do not have to be negative about anything, that I don't know this person, I don't know that person. Now you see, Jamia was not even recognized as a very good law school that time. But now you see the products from our college. We have Mr. Bharat Chok, who's my senior, and I think he's very well renowned. And so, you have good products. So now we don't have to tell, okay, there's a college in Jamia, there's a faculty, law faculty. Earlier, when you used to tell them, oh, I'm from Faculty of Law, so they were like, oh, DU. I used to say, no, Jamia Millia Islam. Like, Jamia has law. So we had to explain and give details. I still remember when I was organizing a parliamentary debate in my final year, and then a lot of DU colleges were coming. So they used to call me and they used to say, where is this place, Jamia? Where is this Faculty of Law? So I had to explain them. So it was pretty surprising that many people did not know. I don't know if they didn't know actually, or they were just pretending not to know. So when they came for the event, we had t-shirts printed for them. We have never heard of you either. So that was the response that we gave. Anyway, so that was all about my college journey. Yeah.
Right, sir. I think that is a very interesting take, especially with the t-shirt part. Although now, obviously, Jamia has grown into a multidisciplinary activities that now happen in the law school itself. Like, I have a lot of friends in Jamia who are studying currently. We've had Model United Nations, we have parliamentary debates now, we have moots, and we all participate in those competitions. But there are two things from this segment that I have taken up. One is particularly how you have very consciously worked and changed the tide, as in you have consciously filled in the areas that you thought were not your strongest points, and now you have made them your strongest points, and how you yourself were a first generation lawyer and you have carved your niche in the industry today. To that extent, sir, I believe it is mandatory for me to ask you this question, because I also am a first generation lawyer, and so are a lot of my listeners of this podcast as well. So if any fresh aspirant during the times that are now changing at such fast pace are entering the industry after law school, would you have any suggestions as far as how should we navigate our way through law school, or maybe after law school in the industry, or pick up a specialization or something of that sort? Like, how should we navigate our way? Do you have any opinion on the
same? Frankly, I think also that it completely depends on what the student wants to do. There may be students that who may be interested in corporate. There may be students who may be interested in pursuing corporate criminal litigation. Somebody might be interested in going for civil services, somebody would want to be a social worker, somebody would want to work with a company as a legal advisor. So it completely depends what you're looking at. However, I think I'll give you the basic tips which I think are relevant and are required in all of these fields. So first and foremost, to all the law students, my request is, at the outset, just get rid of all the negativity in your life. The only issue that we face is, A, we are confused. Okay, it's a good sign. It's a very nice thing if you are confused in your final year. It's a positive sign. Do not worry if you're thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Whether I'll be able to make a mark in the profession, etc., etc. Okay, to some extent, I think it's important. You are serious, you're career oriented, and nobody knows until you actually pass out from your college. You do not know where life will take you. But few takeaways I'd like to give. One is that there is no substitute of hard work. So as long as you're willing to work day and night, like 28 hours a day and 10 days a week, as long as you're willing to put that much of effort in the profession in the initial years, I don't think there's anything stopping you in whatever career you choose. Secondly, I feel that focus should be initially on learning rather than earning. So a lot of people get swayed with the fat salaries being offered by some entities. So see where you are learning. In the initial years, look for a good senior rather than looking for a good high paying salary. Of course, you have that feeling, oh my God, this person is earning that much and I'm not getting that much amount of money. So at times it gets frustrating for a lot of people. But believe me, in the longer run, you will be rewarded in the manner you have not even imagined, especially if you go for litigation, because I personally feel that litigation is something which, will give back to you in the best possible manner, and you will get rewards that you never thought of. So, yeah, I think that's one thing. The other thing I would like to tell you is that you need to, as a law student, or if you are in your final year, internships, of course, are very important because that's your chance to prove your mettle if you're interning in a law firm. So suppose if you are interested in dispute resolution or if you're interested in criminal law, so whichever office you choose, you should know that, look, this is the office which is dealing with criminal law, or this is the office which is dealing with arbitration. So getting an internship is comparatively easier. You apply nicely with a good CV. Do not make blunders. Do not do anything stupid, because a lot of people just casually apply and their CVs get rejected. And apply at least 1 year in advance and keep following up politely. You can call the office and you can request them. And I don't think there's any firm, exceptions are always there, of course, but there are too many law firms, too many offices which are now giving internship programs. And as soon as you realize that, okay, I have a decent CV, I have interned at various places. So the moment you graduate, your first chance should be getting in touch with your associates, your senior associates, or perhaps your partner of that law firm. Because if you're interning somewhere for a month, if you're actually good and if you've actually made a mark there, they would be more than happy to keep you. So initially, the idea is to get in somewhere where you can learn. Please do not prioritize money initially. Think about learning aspect, because once you know the law a little bit and the basics are quite clear, then there are so many avenues open for you. And as long as you're willing to work hard, in my view, there's nothing stopping you, because there's no substitute for hard work. Though luck and destiny, of course, plays an important role. But hard work, I have not seen anybody working hard and his or her hard work going waste. So that is one thing. And you can attend conferences. If you're interested in dispute resolution, you must attend all those webinars that you see on a daily basis now. Everybody is fed up of webinars. But there's too much of content on arbitration. There's too much of content on dispute resolution. There are so many conferences happening day and night. So start attending that. This way you will get an opportunity to interact with those people whom you send emails and who don't respond to you. So you might approach them directly, or perhaps in court you can get in touch with somebody and directly go up to them and request them, or just tell them. It doesn't matter whether they reject or not. That's what I used to do. So I think that's always better. And LinkedIn, of course, is a very good platform. Kaustubh approached me there and I was more than happy to be a part of this podcast. And I'm glad, because this is the first time I think I'm giving any lecture 12 the midnight. So yeah, it's pretty interesting that way.
Right, sir. To clarify, I think it's absolutely my honor to have this conversation with you. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a very long time, and primarily because we've read your interviews, we've read all your stories. You talk about how hard work always pays off. This brings me to one of the very interesting achievement of yours, which I believe is should be discussed, and a lot of our listeners, a lot of aspirants can actually benefit out of it. It's your book, On the Rise. And my question to you is essentially that this book, which has received such a brilliant response, was featured in Fortune 500 magazine. It gives out the kind of direction and guidance that people might need. What was your experience with the authorship, and when it comes to writing a book? What was your principle that you attached to the book, and the outcome that came with the book? So how was this entire journey of yours?
So, like I told you, my college life was not, I was always deprived of the basic legal career guidance. And that's when I felt that there is no dearth of opportunities. And it's only the lack of information which is not available to the law students, especially the first generation lawyers and law students who are not from top law schools. They don't have mentors, they don't have anybody to guide them, they don't have alumni, a strong base, so nobody is there to guide these people. So I felt that maybe it's the trickling down of the information which is lacking. So I think I need to put them a platform, give them a platform wherein they can, these excuses and these hurdles will not stay. So I decided to give these people 20 mentors, I think 20 or 25, I forgot now, it's been long. So I decided that from all walks of life, I will pick the best set of people that I can think of, or based on the opinion of my friends. So for instance, because a law student, when he's in his 4th year, 5th year, he's confused. Okay, I want to go for judiciary. Now, whom to ask whether judiciary, how judiciary is like, how to prepare for an exam. So in judiciary, I took the DJS topper who was my senior, Mr. Bharachuk. So I took his story because I found it pretty interesting. Similarly, I took a few people who are the AOR topper. There was one person who became a district judge. There was one person who joined judiciary, then joined IPS. There was one person from NGO, social work. Then there were 2 people who were working as foreign lawyers with law firms abroad. So I took a mix of everything: general counsels, judges, litigating lawyers, senior advocate. The idea was to give them a platform that, look, this is the best person if you are interested in corporate. So I'm giving you the best person, his story, and his piece of advice to you. So one book which is a one-stop platform for all of you to find out and to decide or to get some guidance to ascertain as to what career choices would be good for you. So that, because a lot of us are not extroverts, we are pretty shy in our approach. Many people would not even come up to you or to me to ask, okay sir, can you tell me, because they feel shy. And they feel that, I don't have a mentor, I don't know how to go ahead. So at least with a book, this excuse would not work. They cannot say that, look, I had a lack of information. So I just wanted to bring some kind of literature for these people. And when I started working on this book, initially there was a lot of people said no. They said we'll not be, because nobody knew who I was. And that's when I felt that, okay, now that I'm trying to, I always believe that ideas come to your mind like drafts. And once you start working on them, they start taking shapes. And then you start seeing it's happening. So idea is that you should always believe in yourself, and you should implement the idea that you have in mind. You should make things happen, in short. And that's what I did. And fortunately, I was able to get forewords by Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi and Mr. P. Chidambaram. The book had 2 forewords. And I had book reviews from Justice Sikri, Mr. Falias Nariman, Mr. Arvind Datar, etc., etc. So it turned out to be a great success, and I was very happy that it did help some students.
Well, I'm sure. So I think the entire principle of you even considering the fact that there are students out there who have not received the kind of mentorship that they need, because I, to some extent, also can understand that, because I come from a second-year law school that is a National Law University, Lucknow. But we do have a strong alumni base. I won't deny that. But there are times when we compete with law schools like NLSIU Bangalore or NALSA. We obviously feel that yes, maybe there is something that we might lack. So at such points, I think all of my listeners can really benefit from a book like that, and I would really suggest that everyone reads this. I personally will read it again, and I have absolutely loved it. This brings me, sir, now to a very important section of our conversation, the legal substantial discussion. And this is the reason why I bring this up is because you've talked about this in the past as well, and this is an up and coming legal issue. It is my request to you is please explain to us how exactly arbitration, essentially when we talk about the arbitration under the MSMEs Act, MSMED Act, and how does arbitration function, because you would have the first-hand experience with the same, and we would like to learn about it from you.
Okay, that's an interesting question, because I think MSME is now an upcoming field, and it's a very good option for a lot of youngsters, because I don't think there are many people who are doing MSME matters, and recently it has become quite popular. So MSME arbitration, basically it's a special legislation under which arbitrations are being conducted. Under the Act, there is a provision, section 18(3), under which there is a conciliation body which is formed, and that's a statutory body. So initially, you have to be a supplier under the Act, and you need to be either a micro or a small enterprise that is registered as a supplier. Once you are registered with the entity, then you can apply for getting your disputes resolved under the Act under section 80. Now, the next step is that when you file your claims before the conciliation body, so initially the conciliation takes place, and the time period for finishing this conciliation is 90 days. The moment this period of 90 days gets over, and assuming that the dispute does not get resolved between the buyer and the supplier, in that case, the dispute is then referred to an arbitration center. Like in Delhi, they have Delhi International Arbitration Center. They refer the dispute to DIAC, and the arbitrator then takes up the matter under the Arbitration Act. The only interesting component and the benefit of the MSME arbitration is that the claimant will get 3 times the bank rate interest, compoundable. So imagine the amount of interest which is payable on these payments. And the next interesting feature about MSME arbitrations is that if you are challenging any order passed by the MSME or in an MSME arbitration, then you need to deposit the 75% of that amount in the court. So I think these are the two very interesting, and these are welfare legislation. So it does help the suppliers, because these MSME entities, they run a risk of becoming sick industries. And therefore, I think recently there have been certain amendments. Very recently, the definition of the micro or small medium enterprise has now been changed, because earlier it used to be on the basis of the investment in the machinery as per section 7, that how much an entity has invested in its machinery as per the balance sheets they used to see. But now I think they are going to include the turnover of the company as the criteria for terming is as micro, small or medium enterprise.
Right, sir, because this, as you have mentioned, the amendments have changed the way, and it has brought the MSME's entire issue into light. We've also seen the governments taking proactive measures with respect to insolvency bankruptcy code in order to protect the interests of MSMEs with the suspension of these sections and these developments. I believe your insight into how arbitration and dispute resolution under the MSMEs Act is very useful for all the listeners. This brings me to a rather broader question, which I believe also should be covered, is that COVID-19, the pandemic, is having a huge impact on dispute resolution as an industry, as a field. The practical aspects of the same are changing at a very fast pace, and the fresh aspirants, because that is the major section of the profession that is not really comfortable or accustomed to these changes. How is the profession adapting to it? How are the practical aspects adapting to it? What are the changes in the sections, in the regulation rules that are required potentially, in your opinion, that should be utilized in this section? So basically, how is COVID-19 impacting arbitration or dispute resolution, essentially, in your opinion?
So the major problem as a person who's doing arbitrations, I feel that because the timelines have been affected majorly, there were a lot of pending drafting that I had to do. There were too many deadlines that I had to meet. But because of the lockdown, we couldn't go to our office. And, because of this reason, we could not file the statement of claim, statement of defense in certain matters. Pleadings could not be completed. Hearing did not take place. Evidence was fixed. It unnecessarily delayed all the arbitrations. See, nobody was prepared for such an unprecedented time, and we were not equipped virtually. And now everything is happening by virtual hearings are happening. Video conferencing is the way forward. So I feel that because of the COVID, we are in a position where we did not imagine we'll be so soon. And due to which, I think now we need to be more equipped virtually. We need to have better infrastructure. For virtual hearings, we need to have, we need to adapt to technology. Even the courts must adapt all of that. But I think one thing we must keep in mind is that when we are drafting arbitration clauses, I'll begin from there. We need to incorporate in that arbitration clause that virtual hearings will be recognized and will be acceptable as a fair hearing in the arbitration. The reason why I say so is because in a lot of jurisdictions, later on parties will say, and virtual hearings are not recognized as a formal method of conducting fair hearings, thereby violation of fundamental, rule of fair hearing, principles of natural justice. Such objections can come up in future. So to avoid all of that hassle, the idea is that in your arbitration clause now, you must agree that yes, virtual hearings will be acceptable, and both parties agree that that would be the way forward. Additionally, I think the other issue that has happened is that some of the arbitrations you see are very, very voluminous, where files are running into 10 volumes, 12 volumes, thousands of pages involved. And especially during a cross-examination, the problem is that you need to at a time refer to various documents, and you need to assist your junior, or you are assisted by your junior, or you can assist your senior. So you need somebody to be there to show you those documents. Especially the cross-examiner will face some difficulty because he cannot see the expressions the way he can in person, the gestures of the witness. So I think in that fashion, there may be some disadvantage at times. However, I feel that arbitration has evolved from time to time, and we must remain positive. We must take this as a very positive step. And we must say that, we must think that this is a development, and it is a pro-arbitration stance, that virtual hearings are in fact making it more convenient. If you look at on the flip side, if you see that, people do not have to travel now from one place to another. Arbitrators used to fly from London to Delhi, Singapore to Delhi, Delhi to Singapore, and parties coming from Bombay, Kolkata, Russia. Now all of that can happen very conveniently at the comfort of your home or your office. So in a way, I think this will save a lot of time. This is the positive side of the virtual hearings. And as soon as we adapt to this, like we adapted the e-filing. Initially, there were filings only by hard copy. But, initially people used to find it very tough how e-filing will be the norm. But then we got used to it. So we'll get used to it. And I don't think this will take long. We'll just adapt to this new normal. And I think we should take it as wherever possible, we should conduct hearing by virtual means. And wherever it is not possible, we may then wait and see as and when the vaccine comes and as and when the COVID, says goodbye.
Right, sir. That's one thing I do necessarily hope for, that we do come up with a vaccine. But I believe the latest insights, the practical aspects of how the dispute resolution or arbitration is now being affected by COVID-19 has been beautifully described by you. I think the entire industry now is facing an overhaul, and digital phase has entered the market. We have already seen a lot of changes, especially in the courts and in the arbitration. So I'm really, really grateful. Thank you so much, sir, for telling us about all these practical aspects of the industry, about the changes. I'm really grateful that I could have this opportunity to talk to you. Do you have any closing remarks for our listeners?
I think the only thing, if most of your listeners would be law students, then I'll just tell them what one of the greatest Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Justice John Roberts, said. So he visited his son on his farewell, and many people were keen on hearing him what he's going to say. So he said that, dear friends, I hope that in times to come, from time to time, you are treated unfairly so that you know the value of justice. I hope you experience enough pain so that you learn compassion. I hope you are ignored from time to time so that you value your friends. And whether I wish these things or not, these things are going to happen. And whether you are able to make the most of it or, benefit from it would depend on your ability to see your message in your misfortune. So misfortunes also come with a positive message. The idea is to have that ability to see the positive message in your misfortune. So yeah, be positive always and stay productive and never give up. That's my only suggestion which I'll give to all my friends. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think we all will hold that creed up to the pedestal that it needs to be held up to, and live up to the expectations, and somehow try and keep working hard. Thank you so much, sir, for taking time out for today. I had a wonderful time talking to you. I hope you had a good time too.
Thank you, Kaustubh. It was actually a pleasure, and especially 1 in the night, 1 a.m. I think it's already going to be 1 a.m.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is pretty interesting for me. It's a
Right, sir.
unique experience, and thank
Right.
you for taking out time so late.
So it's all my pleasure. So I think believe I would have taken time out any time you would have allowed me to interview you, because I believe everyone in who listens to my podcast deserves this conversation. So thank you so
Thank
much,
you
sir.
so
Thank
much.
you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.